But that's the second thing that we'll talk about in the future technologies. Getting back to these guys here, I have LiPos in every single submarine but the Alvin. I have sealed lead acid gel cells in the Alvin. And that's another big distinction that a lot of people miss. You do not have to put LiPo and brushless together. You can run your brushed motors and replace your nickel metal hydride battery packs with a LiPo battery pack that's about the same physical size and probably somewhere around 5 ounces of lead, and your boat will be back in the same static trim it was in before. But the power to weight ratio of a LiPo battery is almost 2 to 1 over the original NiCads, and it's about 60% more than the nickel metal hydride. I've got a 4,500 milliamp battery pack in the skipjack that is about 2/3 the size of a traditional 6-cell 3,000 milliamp nickel metal hydride. And I've got two 2,200 milliamp packs in the Delta, an 1,800 milliamp pack in the Holland, and a 2,000 milliamp pack in the Blueback. And then, of course, with the sealed lead acid, I actually have two 7-amp, 6-volt sealed lead acid batteries in this. But it's the same situation. You can go with NiCads or nickel metal hydride or SLA on your brushless motors, or you can go with LiPo on your brushed motors. It doesn't matter. The only distinction I would make is when you are using a brushed motor, you either want to use a LiPo saver or you want to use a speed control that is designed to work with LiPo batteries, because there are tons of benefits to LiPo batteries, and I'll name them in just a little while here, but there is one huge downside, and that is you can literally kill a LiPo battery and ruin your investment in a blink of an eye. You can over discharge a LiPo battery to the point where it will never recover, and you've basically got a 10-ounce brick, if not worse. If you are over discharging it in a high amp situation like this Budweiser, you might see your Budweiser catch on fire. But in the type of stuff we do, the low amp draw that we do in our submarines and our scale boats, I don't see that as a potentiality.
The one scale Budweiser was catching fire.
Yeah.
So you have a scale.
Yeah. They also stop completely in their tracks on the 1-to-1 if they ingest salt water, which is actually quite common. Off topic a little bit, but getting back to this, the benefits of a LiPo battery are you have a great power to weight ratio. You can, if you've got a submarine like the Blueback where you have a very small space, you can get away with going with a smaller battery and have your little, tire weights strategically located if you need a lightweight setup or in your scale boats. There's a lot of destroyers out there that have a very small draft, and you build the superstructure light and you put a LiPo battery in there, and you've removed 8 to 10 ounces right off the bat. The other huge advantage that I have with the LiPo batteries is they have a shelf life. I can remember when the very first radio-controlled car I had was purchased in 1980, and it was a 1/10 scale Bolink RC car. And it had 1,100 milliamp 6-cell battery pack that you plugged in a nichrome wire into your 12-volt car battery, and you watched one of those wires glow red hot while it was cutting that 12 volts down to 7.5 volts. And 15 minutes later, you had a charged battery pack. Or maybe you didn't because it only received a surface charge. So 6 weeks later, you went out and you dropped probably close to $200 on what was a box that had an egg timer on it that went up to 15 minutes and a switch. 2 switches actually, one switch that was said discharge versus charge, and one switch that was the on-off switch. And the first thing you would do is turn the dial to 15, flip the switch to discharge, and you would watch the little meter as it discharged, and once it got to 1 amp, you would turn everything off and flip the switch to charge, and then you would put your egg timer on 15 minutes, and you would charge. And that's the standard NiCad discharge charge cycle that you had to go through in order to get rid of the memory effect that the NiCad batteries had. Well, your LiPo batteries don't have that. In fact, your LiPo batteries have the exact opposite of that. You can charge a LiPo battery in 1 hour, stick it on the shelf. 12 months later, you can come back, put that LiPo battery in your submarine, and go run your boat around the pond and get about 80% of the runtime that you got if you had put that battery in that boat 12 months earlier. The discharge rate of a LiPo battery on the shelf is about 1% per month. So you can literally charge your batteries when you get home from an event and not have to worry about that panic 3 days before the next event on how many of your batteries are charged and how many of them aren't. And your segregation, this is the pile of charged batteries and this is the pile of uncharged batteries, that's gone. You do, however, have to buy what I would call a smart charger. Now, personally, I bought my first set of LiPo batteries for this boat here about 10 years ago. And they were $49 a piece. I bought 3 of them, and I bought the charger from the same site, Tower Hobbies, the same day, and it was also, I bought a couple of optional things, but the total for the batteries was the same as the total for the charger. Today, I think you can probably buy a Chinese knockoff of that for probably close to 65 bucks, but you really need what I call a smart charger, and that is a charger that can tell you exactly how much you are putting into your battery and what each individual cell is currently at. You want to have for example, all of the battery packs that I have are 2-cell battery packs. So you're going to charge each cell individually using that smart charger, and they're both going to get charged up to the same point so that what we call it's a balanced battery. And that actually, by having the battery balanced when you charge it and charging it what we call a 1C rate, meaning you basically charge it at whatever, like this is a 4,500 milliamp battery, you never want to charge it at more than 4,500 milliamps. By charging it at a 1C value and charging it on a balanced charger, you're giving it the best possible charge that you can. And by doing that, you're basically setting yourself up for perfect storage situation, perfect use of that battery. And unless you're running a boat like that, you're never going to have to worry about your discharge rate, because the LiPo batteries that are sold off the shelf now generally have somewhere between a 25C and a 40C discharge rating, which means a 4,000 milliamp battery is going to be able to be discharged at over 120 amps without physically damaging the battery. And I know for a fact, based on my testing on this submarine, that he pulls a maximum of about 2 amps on the main battery and about 10 amps on the pump battery. So I'm never, even with the 2 running together, I'm never going to pull more than about 1/10 of what the maximum discharge capacity on the battery is. And it's like that across the board on all my submarines. So as far as the discharge is concerned, we really have no possible over discharging the battery at a rate. Now, what we can do is, if you are using your brushed motor and if you are using a brushed speed control that is not aware of LiPos, you can discharge beyond that kill zone. If your LiPo battery is outputting less than 2.8 volts per cell, you have physically damaged that battery, and you may never be able to recover the use of that battery. So that's the one caveat, the only downside that I can see with LiPo batteries. And personally for me, that ability to stick it on a shelf for 12 months, because let's face it, I live in Colorado. I don't run my submarines when the water is ice. So from basically the middle of November to the middle of May, I don't run my submarines. And if my batteries can sit on a shelf for 6 months with no detriment, I'm more than happy. So for me, those are the benefits of going with brushless motors and LiPo batteries. I'm sure there's other people out here who have used both brushless motors and LiPo batteries, and they have their own war stories that they can tell. But I literally have, living with those two constraints on the LiPo batteries, that's pretty much it. Now, but that to me is basically the gist of my seminar as far as the brushless motors and the LiPo batteries are going.